I started adding to the PowerPoint after you and I talked. Wow, awesome turnout so far. This is great. If you guys do have questions, throw them in the Q&A section. We'll try and make sure that we get to them here. But love that everyone's introducing themselves in the chat. Can I share here, Nelson? Yeah. Give it a couple minutes here.
I'm also streaming this on Facebook Live right now.
Awesome.
So yeah, I have quite a few people there.
Great.
Got a bunch of coaches actually on right now. I guess that goes without saying, but I was saying more on the Facebook Live side. Yeah. We're here, Kristen. We're here. If you want to know exactly where, northwest suburbs of Chicago.
College Station, Texas. We got someone from Canada. Awesome. Some international coaches. If you're just hopping in, open up the chat, throw your name, the school or the organization you're from, and the sport you coach. Got a coach from South Australia. Awesome.
Yeah, I think we had a handful of Australians. I saw Poland.
That's great.
India. There was one from Italy, from a soccer club. So
awesome.
Pretty cool that getting that sort of reach throughout the entire world.
Feel free to ask questions in the Q&A section. Obviously, you can throw who you are, where you're from in the chat. San Antonio, awesome. You want to give it a minute here, Nelson?
I'd say let's go for it. Can't start late.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Really excited to be here, obviously on behalf of NCSA and NCSA's Team Edition platform, but really bringing you a topic that is uber important right now. And you know, the way we've kind of structured this, I'm going to go through it, but the importance of this night is really that everything we're doing, and whether it's in business and sport, is being done virtually right now. So we wanted to give you some tips, some strategies, provide a few different types of virtual meeting rooms and virtual structures that you can use in order to get things running, get your athletes ready to go, keep them excited and get engaged in whatever you're doing. So we're going to hit on a lot of stuff. Again, feel free to throw questions into the Q&A section. And if you want to keep that chat room going, you know, and you guys keep introducing yourself. It's always really cool to see the connections that are being built through it. On every slide down here, the bottom left-hand corner next to the NCSA Team Edition logo, you're going to see an enter.ncsa.team. That's a good reminder for you guys. That's a place where you can create a free Team Edition account if you don't already have one. And we're actually going to be doing a raffle off of all the accounts that are built from tonight. So we'll get a little bit deeper into that. And we will pick a coach who's a winner who creates a Team Edition account. And obviously there's also a $50 Amazon gift card that we're going to be raffling off as well. But just to dive right in, guys, I'm John Puglisi. I work on our Team Edition platform here at NCSA, and really just excited to be here with you guys. I was a college basketball coach at the Division I, Division II, and Division III levels for a decade. I coached internationally in Singapore. I've been a high school athletic director and a high school coach at a couple different places. And now I live in College Station, Texas. So right down the street, 2 miles away from Texas A&M. And I'm from the Chicago suburbs, Wisconsin, played Division III basketball myself, but really got involved in the recruiting side when I was an athletic director. And then I coached some club basketball as well, and found my way to NCSA because I used NCSA as a college coach. It was an awesome tool for me. And it was a tremendous resource as a college coach to find student athletes that I knew could play at the collegiate level and were verified in a network that's trusted by a lot of people. I'm going to work as a moderator tonight. So I'm going to introduce, obviously, Nelson Gord as well. I'm going to let him give you his backstory a little bit. I'm going to work as a moderator, though, throughout the night, asking Nelson some questions. Because Nelson has a really unique background in terms of he's not only our director of baseball at NCSA, but he's also the director of one of the best travel baseball programs in the country. And so I feel really fortunate tonight because I get to ask Nelson a lot of questions and put him on the spot because his organization specifically does some really unique things that I think you guys will all appreciate. But Nelson, why don't you give your quick intro here?
Yeah, and just to clarify, when you say best travel baseball organizations, you know, who is it? John Wooden. I'll use a Wooden quote. You know, it's only measured in the impact we have on lives. That's Martin Luther King said it too. Multiple people said that, but
there you go.
Yeah, when you say best, it's not about the trophies and the cases because, to be honest with you, we part with them right away. There's no trophies at our facilities because the kids take them home with them. That's not what it's about. It's about, you know, making memories and, you know, helping bring them along and help them become young men. And I think that's what a lot of the stuff we're going to go through tonight has really helped me over the past, you know, we'll call it 14, 15 years from starting the program just with 3 teams at the youth level and growing it and going through all those growing pains. You know, I think all of our coaches knew that we wanted to help kids, but sometimes some of the business aspects and the marketing and the communication and just overall managing a program is where I think a lot of organizations struggle. And, you know, that's what we're here to talk about tonight.
Yeah. And, you know, I think this is going to be really unique. We really hope that you can draw some things out of this tonight because, you know, this really is meant for anyone. This is meant for high school coaches. This is meant, and I'm going to have Nelson talk a little bit about a much younger age group that he's doing some stuff with, but this is meant for anyone, whether you're a high school coach, a middle school coach, whether you're a teacher, whether you're engaging student athletes who are getting ready to get recruited to play at the college level, or you have kids who are trying to make their high school team. I think the beauty of what we've tried to come up with here is some resources for you to be able to help build your organization, build a team. Some of this, you know, for high school coaches, maybe there's some things within the way that things are done that, you know, doesn't fit completely, but I'm sure that there's going to be quite a few things that you can pull here to make an engaged community within your organization or your team right now. I want to just get really quickly into why we're here, obviously, in the first place. And as you know, as many and all of you know, we're here because of the dead period that the NCAA brought down, which has limited on-campus, off-campus recruiting and evaluation to be done. And recruiting has slowed down in terms of the things that you can do in person. So dead period, no on-campus recruiting, no off-campus recruiting, can't go to tournaments, but obviously none of that stuff is happening. And that has brought kind of to the forefront the fact that nothing in person is going on. Tournaments are postponed, camps are postponed until further notice. ACTs and SATs have been canceled and postponed. Obviously, some new dates have been set there. The NCAA has made a ton of changes in order to make things a little bit easier for recruiting and for recruits right now. But it's been an interesting time, to say the least. So we're here. We're in a virtual age. We're in a virtual space right now. Some organizations are doing amazing jobs at engaging their communities and their coaches and their families. But we've come up with some tools and some ideas that we hope help you using social media as a platform and thinking kind of on a bigger scale. So I'm going to throw a lot of things to Nelson here, and we're going to talk through it. And really the first one that we really wanted to focus on tonight was kind of this idea of the Zoom room and Zoom meetings, which basically, if you're not familiar with it, it's this, right? It's virtual meetings. Yeah, I guess everybody's familiar with it now. It's virtual meetings, right? So there's a lot of different versions of this. There's a lot of free versions of this. And that's one thing that we wanted to really point out tonight is there are so many free options of everything we're going to be talking about. Zoom and WebEx both have meeting room availability up to 100 people that you can use for free. Okay, Skype has different options. You can do FaceTime with small groups. So there are a lot of free versions of everything that we're doing here. But I think the first thing that's really important when we're talking about engaging your athletes and organization, your families, is what do you want to offer and why do you want to offer it? And I think you have to, and Nelson and I have talked about this. I've got it written down a little bit lower, but what is your why? What is the point? What is the reason behind you wanting to do this? And I think if you can get that handled, if you can get that piece, then I think you're going to be in a really good spot. Nelson, I'd love for you to talk just a little when this started and maybe where it's gone to now. And I'm going to pull up kind of the schedule that you guys use, but I'd love to hear just kind of like, when everything happened, tournaments got shut down, you guys couldn't train. How did you come up with the format? Why did you decide on the format that you guys came up with? And we're talking specifically here, guys, about the Zoom meeting rooms and kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, well, first, just to reply to some of the people in the chat, yes, Google Meetings or Google Hangouts is also a great avenue. Yep. And we know for a lot of the coaches on the line, that's what a lot of the schools use. So we're definitely not shunning or not suggesting you use Google. No. I think the point is, if anything that's out there, the point is just to do something. And, when everything came down and we started making decisions as far as how we should handle our summer schedule, which we should be doing with the players in the interim, the most important thing you could do in any organization, and this is not just about baseball or just about athletics, really, in any industry, in any business, is just communicate, right? And the last thing that you ever want is for something that you say to one parent or to one family or to one player to be misconstrued, taken out of context, and then all of a sudden you have the gossip, going on, and before you know it, it gets out of hand. So, it's real important to nip it in the bud before it even starts. And the best, way for us to do that is to say, hey, on Sunday night, we're going to have a call with the whole organization. I know on that last slide there, you had the 20-minute rule. We don't want to take up much more time than that. I mean, I think it's proven, right? Like the TED Talks are 18 minutes long. That's kind of a golden number that, call it 15 to 25 minute range. But we want you to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? We want you to hear the information directly from us, what we're thinking. We also want you to pose questions, right? We want you to walk away from there feeling informed, but also with some things to chew on and some things to come back to us with, because if there's one family or one athlete that's thinking it, then certainly there's going to be a number of others. So that was where it initiated. And then, the other part of it is we wanted, which was that next slide that you had up, we wanted to give an opportunity for the kids to meet their teammates. And I know in most clubs and in most high schools for that matter, one of the most difficult things that you have to encounter is forming that team dynamic, right? And learning how they interact with each other and, how the players are going to function within it. So if we could give them, an outlet somewhere for the coaches to see how they're going to interact. And, sometimes it's very informal, other times it's more of kind of a presentation format, but the fundamental idea is just that we're bringing them together for a scheduled, a structured time in their day, a time in their week, something they can look forward to, something they can plan on, and hopefully something they grow from.
Yeah. And I just love the idea, guys. There's a lot of ways you could do this, but I just love the idea of staying organized and having your kids understand expectations. And that's kind of why I really enjoyed that schedule when Nelson shared it with me, is because I think it's really important for kids to know, here's the expectation. And families know, here's the expectation. We're going to take 20 minutes. We're going to go through some things. We're going to ask for something back. We're going to create engagement. We're going to keep them into it and in the moment. And, I know there's a lot of teachers, high school coaches on here. That 20-minute rule in teaching is an awesome rule. I was a teacher for a few years. Young people have a 20-minute, a 20 or so minute span that they can really take in information and compete mentally at a high level. And even if it's just getting them up and wiggling around, we used to do that in the classroom all the time. Get up and switch desks, get up and do a jumping jack, whatever it was. It gave us a time to break it up very quickly and get to that point. And I think that 20 minutes is a really crisp number, because you don't want to take too much more than that. These kids are engaged in school still. They have more going on. But if you can give them a short window that breaks that up, I think it's really cool. We're going to talk a little bit about, on the next couple slides, town hall meetings versus team meetings, and why you would do those things and why they'd be a little bit different. There's a lot of similarities between them, but I think for you guys, it's really important for you guys to engage those families as well, no matter if you're a high school coach or a club coach, or, you individually train athletes. And I think a big reason, and Nelson kind of hit on the head, was updating families on what's happening right now. And we're definitely going to get into that. I do have an interesting piece to just add on here, is that, some organizations, depending on where they were in their schedule, high school teams, club programs, if you accept dues and you had tryouts already and you form teams, families are going to, figure out, hey, what are you giving me now? Why am I a part of this organization? There's a few organizations we work with on our Team Edition team who have actually developed virtual memberships, where those families and those kids can get engaged in a virtual membership because they hadn't collected fees and they have bills to pay. And so this was a great way for them, because they hadn't collected any fees, to engage people, collect, some money, but absolutely give value back. And I think the idea of a virtual membership, if it's done well by the right people, can be really good. Now, I know there's a lot of programs who don't need to take the money for it, and you're all volunteers and things like that. But I do think this idea of a virtual membership, what do you get, why are we doing it, is a really cool idea. We put together some suggested meeting topics when you're meeting individually with your program. And Nelson's doing things within the Illinois Indians that I think is really intriguing. A little bit of it, and one of the best things that I think they're doing, is they're taking this idea of teaching leadership, teaching camaraderie. And Nelson, I'd love if you can just dive in a little bit into the thoughts behind how you guys are doing things a little bit differently. So it's not just, hey, we're working, I want to see you working on your skill. I want to see you hitting in the cage. I want to see you throwing. Talk a little bit about the other side outside of the skill development stuff, but like the mental and the IQ side of things.
Sure. Well, I think, again, this transcends athletics. The most valuable skills that you can develop are the soft skills, right? Your ability to communicate, your ability to work within a team, how you present yourself, how you, go out into the world. And one of my big pushbacks with all travel sports has always been this idea of playing at your age level, right? And just kind of growing up with that same group of kids. And we move from 12U to 13U to 14U to, all the way up through the chain. And that dynamic, that pecking order really doesn't differ very much. So kids fall into roles, they fall into ruts and rarely kind of hit their stride. And, what we wanted to do to kind of get around that was bring together two things. One, a mentor-mentee relationship, right? Is that what you want to go down with this one?
I want to hit the mentor-mentees in a couple slides. I'm thinking more of a little bit just like about how you guys are engaging them together and some of these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, same deal. You have our YouTube page pulled up right there, and all of our team meetings every week, we record them, we post them, they're in playlists on our YouTube channel. And one of the first week that we were on, you have kids laying in bed and you have kids doing this. And I'm like, listen, guys, like, I'm not mandating it. But sit your butt up, look into the camera, be presentable. And all we're asking you is to be present for the next 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, strap it on, let's go. And I think that's the thing that, going beyond just these seasons, this circumstance that they're under, that's hopefully going to carry through with them. Right. And they'll become a little bit more disciplined, and they'll know how to go through an interview, and they'll know how to, use these different technologies and, again, grow from that and be in a better place because of it.
Yeah. I think there's so many great ways that you guys can hold meetings and whys as to why you're holding meetings. These are just some topics. We're going to send this video out to everybody, but, if you see something on here, take a picture of the slide with your phone, check it out so that you have it in there and you can easily reference it back. I think there's a couple of things I really wanted to hit on. One is the idea of guest speakers and mentors. Your alums, if you're a program that's, 5-year-olds through, seniors in high school, your high school kids, being a person who can talk to the younger teams, for your high school kids, those kids who want to be college bound, college coaches are a great resource at the Division III, the NAIA, and the junior college levels. Those coaches could come talk to your team. If you reach out to a coach on Twitter, a college coach at the Division III, JUCO, or NAIA levels, I can almost guarantee you they would be willing to come talk for an hour plus to join your kids and talk about recruiting or talk about skill development or talk about college life. These coaches love to do that. One, it gives them free marketing, but two, it's why we're in this in the first place. And it's why we're coaches in the first place. So that's a really great resource. And some of the other topics, we've seen clubs do some really cool, like viral video contests. I think it's really important to create team unity and have a place for these kids to enjoy. You've seen different things in different sports, but get creative with your organization or your team. Post it to social media. It might not do anything. Your kids are going to have a great time doing it together. And it's going to feel like they're there, And I think, and Nelson, is there anything else that you guys have done to kind of build that camaraderie together?
One thing we've talked about doing is doing, some video game leagues and stuff like that. I think that is going to help. And, looking back on my own playing days, those are the things you remember with your teammates, right? Like hanging out on the bench, or like in hoops, I sat the bench a lot. So I had about all but the last 90 seconds on the bench. But, sitting on the bench with guys, goofing around, going on travel trips and staying in the hotels. I remember James Bond, the video game, was real big when we were all playing. Like, you look back on stuff, and that's when you develop your friendships. And, all of a sudden the guy to your right and left, when you're actually on the court or on the field, you kind of trusted a little bit more because you knew them better, right? They were like your brother. Yeah. And I think those are things that are important. Like, don't take it too seriously. Everything doesn't have to be so structured and so like such a teaching moment. Let it develop organically.
I saw some really cool stuff. Like in Southern California, a group of 32 high school coaches made a esports competition amongst all the teams. They did like brackets, and they did like a couple, 5-game series or whatever it was. That kind of stuff is really cool. It's engaging to these kids. And I think that's got a ton of value. And feel free, I think, Nelson, we talked about this. I don't need you to dive too deep into it, but feel free to have your players lead some meetings. Teach them those skills. Give them a topic, whatever it is. It could be a skill development topic. It could be something that they have to go through and they have to read, like a book club, book report topic, or an article recap. But give them something that they can lead, because you're going to, again, teach them a really valuable skill there. So those would be kind of like the ideas behind small team meetings. You got whatever your sport is, you've got your team, your specific team that you meet with once, maybe twice a week, or however you're doing it. We don't tend to know all the answers here. But the other idea is behind town hall meetings and town hall topics. The idea of a town hall is really important because, and Nelson made this mention earlier, if one person has a question, then others probably have that same question. And if you don't answer that question quickly, what happens? It starts a roller coaster. You got people, and it's a waterfall. People are getting other people talking about different things. So I think the idea of having large organizational meetings to get ahead of things is really important. But there's a couple other things that I think is really cool that you can add value to. One is obviously the idea behind recruiting education. It's not for every team, and it's not for every program. But you can use that time to disseminate information to the masses so your whole organization understands what that looks like. And I think another big piece, and Nelson, I'd love for you to hit on this because I don't know how you guys do this, but expectations from a family and like how you guys promote the expectations of parents. I love to hear kind of why you're doing these town hall meetings, how you're setting that up, and what that looks like for you guys.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny. We do have a code of conduct that we have players and parents sign. It's been standard since day one, but we always boil it down to 3 simple points, right? Like the players play, the coaches coach, the umps or the refs, ump and ref. And if you follow those 3 things, it can be pretty easy. But I think the important thing again is when we're doing them, we'll do a big program-wide meeting between our fall season and then our winter training. It is just to get a sense of where people are at, right? And just like the players evolve and the industry evolves and everything else, every year kind of presents its own unique set of challenges. And if we give them an opportunity to ask questions, then we can better position ourselves to create a program that's going to benefit the kids in the way that they need to be served. And sometimes we get stuck in ruts where we feel like we know it all, or we've been a part of this for so long, and we kind of have to take a step back and be like, okay, well, the game has changed. Not the game on the field or the court, but the game, of life and of parenting, and we need to gap fill and give them what they need.
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier, Nelson, and I think this was a really great point that you brought up. Town halls are great in short increments. It's a really good place when you have something that you need everyone to understand. And you talked a little bit about your schedule here this summer when things do clear up. I'd love for you to kind of just discuss like how you guys came to that idea about your schedule going from national to more local, and then how you communicated that out to the families. Because it's not about what you chose, but I think it's how you communicated it in a large setting that I think can be really useful.
Yeah, well, about 2 weeks into the whole the home quarantine, and nobody really had a sense of how long it would last, and there were a lot of questions. There's still a lot of questions, right, about what's going on this summer and everything else. But we made, a pretty important and substantial decision to eliminate all of our travel, with the exception of the very last week in July. And even that, is probably in jeopardy. But we did it, we didn't slowly release the schedules. We actually delayed releasing our initial schedules because we knew something was on the horizon. But we just, did it with a broad sweep. And we told everybody at once and said, hey, we're doing it not because we believe either way that the country is going to open up or it's going to remain shut down, but more so because it's important, regardless of what happens, for you to stay within your community, for you to stay with your families. We know that this whole thing has impacted families in different ways. Some are going to struggle a little bit more financially. Others have endured, losses or illnesses or other things. But, we try to look at it from every angle and say, okay, well, what's the best thing long-term for these kids? And how do we still continue to serve them and give them things that they need, but at the same time be sensitive to, the condition that we're in. And I think that because we presented that all at the same time and went through all those bullet points, it was welcome with open arms instead of a lot of questions and debates.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I think it's really important. Get out ahead of things, communicate it openly, be passionate about, the fact that this is for the athletes and you're trying to make the best decisions for everyone. I think there's one other thing that I really believe in, and I think this could be used for high schools. I think it could be used for organizations. NCSA, here at NCSA, we're celebrating our 20th year, and we have people who have worked with NCSA for the entire span. We have people who are celebrating 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and we have different celebrations for those things. And I think it's really important as an organization or as a team to celebrate accomplishments, whether that's academics, whether that's a family being a part of a program because, they've had older brothers or sisters a part of it, whether it's Letterman winners on a high school team or, a 3.5 GPA and above club, whatever it is, commitments to college programs. I think it's really important that you guys celebrate those things and share that with your kids, share it with the community as a whole, because, at the end of the day, that's what's important. We know that as coaches, that's why we do it. There's so many other things that we can celebrate besides just wins and losses on the field or on the court. So I'd love to keep that in mind here. We're going to get a little bit into kind of our 5, themes or 5 keys to running an organization virtually. Again, these things this is not the only way to do things. What we wanted to do is we wanted to provide some different ways that you can run your organization or your team, some different things that you can do to help your kids out, messaging platforms, things like that. The first one is really that we're staying connected and building leaders. And Nelson, I'd love for you to dive in a little bit to just how you guys are doing things from a peer mentoring perspective, what you're sharing with each other, how they're working together in a group, and what that really means and how you guys kind of came up with that.
Yeah, and I started to touch on this a little bit earlier. Again, the thing that is lost in travel or club sports is that team dynamic, the upperclassmen, the underclassmen, kind of following their lead. And when you look at what's happened with the spring sports this year, I mean, that's entirely out of the question. So, try to figure out ways to fill in that gap and help provide that part of the growing up experience that they're being robbed of, right? Like stats and records and wins and losses are one thing, but looking up to the upperclassmen, learning from them, that's something that's really, really hard to recreate. So we did 2 things. We created a mentor-mentee pairing. So every upper class athlete is paired up with an underclass. And then with each of those pairs, we also designed these accountability groups. So for the accountability groups, that has everybody from 8th graders on up to seniors, and most are between 7 and 9 athletes, and they meet once a week. And it was really interesting. I actually surveyed after the first 2-3 weeks of doing this. I surveyed them all and asked, how's it going? And the ones that were most satisfied were the ones that were attending the most meetings and that were really working with their mentor or mentee. The ones that didn't find a ton of value were the ones that, you know, in some cases haven't even met at all because of scheduling conflicts, or maybe they're just not feeling it. But the fact that the ones that are doing it are finding value and are excited about it, you know, leads me to believe that it's serving the purpose that we set out for to.
Yeah, I also want to hit on something that I think is really important, and just because of everything that we're all dealing with, but I think it's really interesting to give your athletes the opportunity to journal, and not journal with the intention of sharing, but journal with the intention of just getting things off their chest, with opening up, even if it's just to their paper and to themselves. You know, I really believe in this. I have since I coached in college. I have since I was a teacher. I really see a ton of value for our young people in being able to open up, even if it's just to themselves. No one ever is going to see it. You know, I used to ask my athletes and my students to journal, and then at the end of class to tear it up and throw it away. It allowed them an escape. And sometimes journaling could be, hey, draw a picture. You know, it could be doodle. You know, it could be whatever. But, like, you know, give them a select piece of homework that just says, hey, spend 15 minutes and just open up to yourself, whatever that looks like. Because, you know, these young people's minds are in 1,000 places. And, you know, us as adults, our minds are in 1,000 places. This can be a really impactful and thing that athletes and young people just should do. And if you give them a prompt, I think that goes a really long way. And then the one other idea is just goal setting. And that could be a goal about anything. But I think now is a really good time that you can help those athletes reach goals, set goals, whether it's their future as an athlete, future in business or a college, whatever it is. But use some time to teach goal setting. You know, the idea of SMART goal setting, great way to look at it. Google it, very easy to go through. You guys can give your athletes some of those things. And Nelson mentioned this earlier, but like what young athletes are missing the most is the opportunity to be a part of a team and to learn that dynamic and learn those relationships.
So the SMART goals, that's actually a huge part of the accountability groups that we put together, is that every week when they meet, you know, they're supposed to set a goal. And then in the actual group setting, they review what their goal is from last week, what they did to achieve it. And then every goal that they set week over week has to be towards a larger long-term goal. So we're using exactly that format, and, you know, the ones, again, that are following it are seeing some benefit.
And you're always going to have that, guys. I think that's the one thing to remember, is you're always going to have, it's just like being a teacher. And I know we have a lot of teachers on here, but you're going to have those people who are really engaged, who are trying to maximize it. And then you're going to have those people, those students, those athletes who aren't super engaged. And you can't worry about that second half in terms of them not engaging. You got to try. You got to give them everything that you can. This is such a unique time. You've got to check in with them, try and find ways to engage them. But, you know, there's going to be some kids who just don't engage with a mentoring group. Maybe it's not for them. There's other ways to maybe build them and bring them in.
Absolutely.
You know, the second idea is just less is more. You know, I don't know how many directors and organizational presidents or board members are on this call, but there are so many ways that you can do so many things. Okay. And so I do want to dive a little bit into your decision, Nelson, as an Illinois Indians program to go and start using league apps. But just with this idea, guys, that there are so many free things that you can use. There are so many free trials that you can use. And the idea would be is if you can find 3 platforms that do 5 things, that is a much better idea than 15 platforms that do 1 thing. And I think, Nelson, as you went through just this idea of you guys use league apps as a program, can you talk about just like, how did you get to that piece, you know, and what that looked like? And I'm just going to bring up your website, but just talk a little bit through that.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, you know, in everyday life, you have to look at yourself and realize what your strengths and weaknesses are. And the next layer is bringing great people that complement that. And once you have those two pieces, looking at our staff, I mean, really there's one person that is kind of full-time. There's a few program directors and then a boatload of coaches. So realizing where we were weak and where we needed an extra boost, ledgering that out, looking at it, pretty carefully, and then finding a solution that met a lot of those needs, right? Because we were piecemealing things together before, and using a Google sheet for this, and this registration platform for that, and this for social media, and this for communication. So, we really wanted to look at something that was more all-encompassing. And then, with League Apps and what you pulled up right there, they also have a website design portion of it, which was huge because we also wanted to, refresh and do some things with that. So, it was the right solution for us. And again, I don't think I'm going to push any one program or any one product down anybody's throat and say this is the one that you have to use. But really, do an internal evaluation, be pretty self-aware about where you need some help, and then find the thing that accomplishes those needs that you have.
Yeah, and there's great resources. It's about the best fit for you, and I think that's what Nelson's really talking about, is like looking internally. What do we need to accomplish? What are we good at? Where are we set? And what are we looking for? And there's all of these are really great. League Apps, TeamSnap, Sports Engine. This Cleated Up Fast Pitch is an application that fast pitch softball programs can use for messaging and different things. There's so many different versions of these platforms that you can use and you can navigate. I think it's really important as a coach to know that, and this is how I felt as a basketball coach, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. These things exist. There's great versions of these. If you're an app designer, a website designer, and you have a great idea, fine. But here, there are awesome tools and resources within every platform that you should look at taking advantage of. They exist. As easy as this example, NCSA has, our Team Edition platform is free. Again, if you want to enter to win the drawing, another drawing, go to enter.ncsa.team, build your free Team Edition account. I'll talk about what you're going to have access to at the end. That's really exciting that we're able to offer. But through a free Team Edition profile, every coach in the country has access to every contact for their sport at the college level. So you could put in Indiana University and you could pull up the basketball coaches for Indiana University's email, their phone numbers. That's all there. When I was a high school coach, when I first became a high school coach, we used to have the Kelly Blue Book, which had all the coaches' names, or we had to Google them to find email accounts. It all exists in our platform for free. You don't need to build your own spreadsheet. That's all there. And so the idea that these things already exist, I think, is really important for you guys to take a look at. And, maybe you're a high school coach. You don't need a website. You don't need some of those things. There are so many free tools and resources that you can find in different apps and different situations. And sorry to cut you off, Nelson. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. And one thing I will point out is that, with NCSA, we are partnered with a number of different companies. Some are listed on the screen there. Others are not. Yep. Let's not anybody take that personally. We value, again, everyone, whether we're working with them or not. And every day there's, really, really smart people that are coming out with even new and better ones, so I would encourage you to do that and please share it with us. If you're using something different, yeah. I'd love in the Q&A or the chat box for you to let us know what software and what programs you're using, because there's a lot of things that we aren't privy to that, that we should know about, and things that people are creating that are pretty awesome. So, please share that information. We'd love to know about it.
And put it in the chat room. If you have something that you use and that's been really good for you, throw it in the chat room. Like, this was not intended to be a marketing tool at all for us tonight. We really just found some really great opportunities here, and it just, it's something that you guys have access to. So I hopefully there's great sharing going on as well. I think the other part with all this is you as a coach, that has a staff with them, engage your young coaches. And not to mean that you can't control everything, but young coaches are really excited to do more. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But if you can engage some of your young coaches, it really goes a long way. I mean, I'd love for you guys to take advantage of that and think about that. Communication and marketing and just this idea of controlling communication is really important. I think efficiency is the number one thing. I think if you can find, again, three things that do five, three platforms that do five things each rather than 15 that do one, I think you're going to be in a better space. But have a communication flow. And Nelson, I'd love for you to talk a little bit just about the way that you guys use text versus email and what that looks like, kind of the weekly newsletter, monthly newsletter that you guys do, because I think you have a really good way of looking at the reason to use text, how you do that, and then what you follow up with in an email.
Yeah, I think I used the analogy with you when we were talking earlier this week, just saying, emails are kind of the main event, right? Like there's a lot of content there. There's a lot of detail there. There's things that people are probably going to overlook, but things that need to be included. When we look at text message, it's kind of like the trailer, the preview, like, hey, be on the lookout for this. We need to disseminate this information. We need to get out there in a hurry. And then afterwards, after we host an event or we send out, a pretty lengthy email or newsletter, hey, go back and review this part of it. Or if you haven't filled out this form, if you haven't done this, please do so. So I think it really does a nice job of tying that loop together when you're able to deliver in that cadence, like a text, email, text, and then be very strategic, because there are certain things that are certain aspects of your program that are going to only apply to certain, subgroups or segments of it. And there are things that are really important to others. So if you can take the larger piece, which still has value for even the ones that it doesn't apply to as much, right? Like about recruiting and about all that stuff. If you're talking to an 8th grader or a freshman, they need to know what's next, but you don't need to really do a deep dive into it. But then just, extracting pieces of it in those text messages when action is needed to be taken immediately.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good way to look at it, guys. Just from the idea of a text is a really good way to remind someone to look at something, to disseminate a ton of information, use those emails, use a newsletter, let people know that it went out. I also think the idea of flow is really important. If your families know that they can expect a newsletter on Sunday night at 5:00, they're going to be more likely to read that rather than if it comes, sometimes Sunday morning, sometimes Tuesday, sometimes Thursday, sometimes Saturday. If you can make sure you have a flow and it's always prepared, and if it's going to be late or if it's not going to come out, let them know that it's not going to come out. So if you do have a place to be able to chat and message people on, I think that is a really good way to look at it. Nelson, you guys use MailChimp, GroupMe. What do you guys do in terms of being able to text, email people out?
Yeah, those are the two primary ones that we use. Again, the nice thing with MailChimp, that has some integrations with League Apps, so we're able to automate some things. GroupMe is something that we started using, I think since GroupMe started years ago. And again, I've tried other things. I've tried TeamSnap has a functionality for that, and there's Band, and there's Slack, and there's various things. We've just found that to be the one that's been easiest for us. We have a long history there, and I can go back and text some teams from 2013 if I wanted to right now. So it's been well received and something that we've really worked well with.
And I think that's about being efficient. You guys keep that information somewhere that's really useful. You may want to have a 20-year reunion of Illinois Indians.
Oh yeah.
You may want to, like whatever that looks like, you're going to want to do those things to celebrate it. You're going to want to invite people back. You're going to want these people who are running Fortune 500 companies in 10 years to come, and donate their time, maybe their money too, whatever that looks like. But, that's where you're going to want this information to be saved and why you're going to want it there. And I wanted to talk a little bit about social media here because free is free. I want everyone to realize that free is free. Free is really good. There aren't that many things that you can get for free anymore. So I think it's really important that you guys know how you can take advantage of free and what that looks like for marketing, and what that looks like on a bigger scale. Nelson's Illinois Indians group does a really great job of using social media. I'm using Nelson's group. There's a lot of people who do it great, but because I've got Nelson on and I can dive into these things a little bit deeper with him, and he's obviously comfortable with me sharing the information, it goes a little longer for us to be able to dive into. But, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook are very unique, in my opinion, as someone who's kind of been in this world. I think when you're thinking about those as social media platforms, Twitter is a really great place to engage and have your athletes engaged. It's a great place to share information on a small scale. It's a great place to build brand equity and a brand, which we're going to talk about, for your organization, because it's used by so many young people, families, businesses, other organizations. It's a great connection point. I think there's some really key things that Nelson does with his Twitter. One is his ability to tag a lot of different things. He's a part of a bunch of different programs, Program 15, NB Baseball. That is all really important to do. But they just do things a little bit differently. They celebrate, they encourage each other on it, and they use it to make connections with not only their players, but with the bigger baseball community. Instagram is a very unique one. And in my opinion, Instagram is best served to celebrate within your organization, not necessarily to get that information out to other people. I think it's a little bit tougher to advertise from an organization out to others, whereas you can share celebrations, you can share pictures, things from tournaments, commitments, those kinds of things internally through Instagram. And I think that's really impactful. Nelson, I do want you to talk, though, about YouTube, because you guys use your YouTube better than a lot of people probably even know how to. Although everyone's been on YouTube. I watched a 5-year-old's karate class on YouTube this morning with my 3-year-old to get him doing some different moves. But talk a little bit about how you guys use YouTube, because I do think it's really interesting. I want to tell you afterwards. I'll mention why I bring it up.
Yeah. So, we try to put everything that we do as a program on there, whether it's them training and taking swings or throwing bullpens, so they can lean on that both for player development, and then also the recruiting aspect. So every kid in our program has their own playlist. The coaches film them. We upload the video to their playlist, and that seems to work, really, really well. Like I said before, all the accountability group meetings are posted there. A lot of the town halls or the preseason program-wide meetings that we've done, even when we did them in person, you can go back to like 2010, 2011 and find our program-wide meetings, because, we want to be able to get that information out to as many people as possible in as many different places as we can, so there really is an excuse like, oh, I missed this, I couldn't be there. We want to bring the information to them in their lap when they need it on demand.
Yeah, we work with hundreds of clubs across the country, right, and across the world. I actually work with a specific organization that uses like Dropbox and posts a lot of things in there. YouTube is free. It's such a cool. If you have a chance, just go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and one thing, if you're talking about it from a recruiting angle, or even, I think this is actually where it kind of originated from. If you're talking about just sharing highlights with grandma or grandpa, or your godparents or whoever that can't be there, and you're around the Thanksgiving table, you can pull up YouTube on your television pretty easily and watch it on the big screen or watch it wherever. So I think the versatility of the product, the ease of use, just makes it far superior. So all of the Google proponents before, talking about how we excluded Google Meet or Google Hangouts, here's our paying homage to a Google product in YouTube.
Yeah. And talk quickly just about, because like a lot of coaches who are coaching right now kind of were in college or right out of college when or are part of the Facebook world. Young people are not as big of a part of Facebook as they are Twitter or Instagram. But talk about how you guys use Facebook really quickly, because I do think you guys are unique in how you use it.
Yes, I mean, that's exactly the point, is that you have to use each social medium for what their audience is going to be. And who keeps the schedule in the house? Most likely probably mom. So when it comes to tryout time, we post all of our tryout information in there. We create events. We put them even in like the local like garage sale groups, like, hey, come attend this event, because they're the ones that are going to kind of get that on the calendar. And then everything else, like who likes to sit around and talk about how great their kid is? Probably dad, right? So he tends to be more of a Twitter user maybe. And then, like you said before, the Instagram stuff, the kids share stories, we repost some things. We probably don't have as much traction in there, and something that we need to continue to work at. But when it comes down to it, the kids aren't as much the decision makers. So when it comes to marketing your program, Instagram maybe isn't as important, because they're not going to have the last say, and they're not going to, be the ones that are talking about it to neighbors and everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like how they use it. I think it goes a really long way. I think there's great reasons to use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then I would really encourage you to check out, your ability to use YouTube, because I think it's undervalued. I think it's underused. Nelson's doing things like we showed you earlier. They're posting their Zoom meeting rooms on there. I'm a huge proponent of making sure that we give things back, right? So that there can be learning and education. We're gonna give you guys this recording back. Why? Because if there's something you missed, I want you to see it. So it's the same idea with your young people, with their parents. You're sharing information in a lot of different ways. Number 4 was control your relationships, and this may not be something that everyone is gonna grab a ton of value on, but I do think it's something that you guys can really think about. And I don't want to stay too heavy into the CRM idea, Nelson, but can you just kind of explain, for those people who don't understand kind of the CRM, can you just explain what that is and maybe how you guys use it? I'm going to get to a couple other things as well.
Yeah, so one of the early challenges that we faced was just tracking player information and, knowing about relationships. One of our main objectives in our program is to not only move the players along to the next level, but every year, we probably have a quarter to a third of our coaches go on and coach at the college level, end up with a head high school job. Like, we want it to be a launching pad for them in many ways. But with that turnover and with that objective also comes some challenges, right? When you have this constant revolving door in a good way of staff and coaches come in and out, it's hard to pass along all the info. So if we have a central location where they can go back and access it, when needed, it just makes it easier on me. It makes it easier on our program directors, and then ultimately a better experience for the athletes and the parents.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I think the biggest thing that I took away when Nelson and I talked about this earlier is, like, you have a coach who leaves and he still has a team. How do you get him all that, the next coach who takes over, all that information without just having to regurgitate everything that's happened over the last couple of years, or who every player's parent is, or who, where their information is located? Like, it's all really easy to be able just to pass it on. People have access to that, and I think that's really important. This would be the idea of you having short-term versus long-term solutions. And Nelson, they needed a long-term solution because they had fought with it a little bit. You can have Google Sheets. That's a way you can do it. You can use Microsoft Excel. But then there are solutions through Sports Engine and League Apps and Mind and Body and Easy Facility that are available that you can use. And that's just a reality of it. I mean, I think a great reason to have something in place is because your organization is not just you. And so I think that's an important piece to it. This is where you can track your data. So if you are an organization, you are coaching on a higher level, this is where you can track your data. Number 5 is kind of centered around the idea of player development and recruiting solutions. If you're not familiar with NCSA's platform, I'm going to give the quick really spiel, but I want you to know that there's a lot of free access to a lot of different materials out there that you should try and take advantage of. NCSA Team Edition has a free access point. NCSA is the largest network that student athletes and college coaches use in the country. That is a reality. We're the most trusted in the space. Team Edition is the administrative access point for you as coaches. It's a great place for you to track activity, to have access to recruiting education. And recruiting education is one of the things I think NCSA and Team Edition does better than anything. We've got a lot that we can do because we are so trusted, and we do have so many really fantastic partners. Not every coach has a roster full of athletes who are going to play collegiately. I talk to over 100 coaches a week. The amount that have a roster full of college, able players is, probably 10%. We work with some really high level organizations, but we work with a ton of high school programs who have a ton of really gifted young people who, and maybe, I don't know, of those high school rosters, I'm thinking about my graduating class, even as a basketball player. 3 out of 8 of us went and played college basketball, but we were really good. We were 26-3. So, there's a place for you as a high school coach, as a high school AD, as a club coach, as a club director. There's a place for you to be able to assist with the recruiting process, and it's important for you to be able to understand that. I think a big piece is, how do you want to bucket your time? Nelson uses a lot of different versions of a lot of different things because he has access to a lot of really cool ways to do things, and it's not just about recruiting, it's about player development. It's about film study. Think about, a golf analyzer, Blast Motion does baseball and softball stuff, and I think it's really important that, you guys take a look at those things so that that there are versions where you can pass on information to be able to help. Nelson, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit, because everyone's different. Every coach I talk to is different. But in terms of the recruiting process and your Illinois Indians group, how do you guys manage that? Do you have a main point of contact? Does every coach help? What does that look like for you guys?
On the recruiting end?
Yeah.
You're saying? Yeah, so when it comes to recruiting, we kind of take the approach of teach a man to fish, right? And he'll feed himself for a lifetime. We put a lot on the front end as far as telling kids how they need to be doing things, how they need to execute upon them, and kind of our internal rule that we also tell the kids is, we're going to work as hard for you as you're willing to work for yourself, right? So if we see a lot of activity, and again, there's a huge benefit to using a recruiting solution. If we see a lot of activity in your NCSA profile, then we're going to go to bat for you. And if you ask us to call a school or to reach out or to follow up, we're going to be more apt to doing it. And then conversely, there are families that over our history, haven't been too pleased with some aspects of who's looking at their son or who's not looking at their son. And for us to have the ability to go back and be like, well, listen, you can't even reply to this coach because you think that you're too important for them. It's a very objective way to handle some difficult conversations, right? So, we do that at the highest level as far as the education piece. We have 2 or 3 program directors that, boil it down and work with the athletes individually, and then throughout the season, when everybody's not together and they're at different tournaments and doing different things, we ask that the coaches, film when necessary, tweet, post, whatever, so that we can get the information out. So tier it that way. And I think the combination of the three angles of it, have shown a lot of benefit.
Yeah, I think it's just important to keep in mind that, you can provide solutions to kids. You don't have to do anything for them. And, I love the way Nelson does it. Other coaches do everything. It's up to you. I think that's really important for you guys to realize, what is your why and what do you want to offer? You know, I talk to coaches every day who want to provide solutions to their kids, and they want to build it in, and they want it to be, you know, on the forefront of everything that they do. And I would talk to other coaches who say, yeah, this is awesome. I love that they're doing it. I'm glad they're doing it and I'm not. You know, it's what you want to do. It's what you want to involve, and how involved you want to get as a coach. But it's about providing a resource, right? And I think that's another thing from a player development standpoint. You know, Blast is a really cool thing. And you know, every sport has their version, Nelson, but I'd love for you just to give the idea of Blast, because every sport does have a version of this in some way. So how do you guys use it organizationally? And maybe just give a quick little overview so our football and our track coaches and everyone else knows what that is.
Absolutely. So, you know, we talked earlier about the mentor-mentee, the accountability groups, and, you know, you made the comment that, hey, everybody might not want to be a part of this, right? They don't feel comfortable talking about themselves. It's just not part of their makeup. What's interesting is that some of the kids that may not be as engaged on that end, I can open up their Blast account or open up our Blast account, look at everybody, they're taking the most swings, right? So in their mind's eye, they're saying, I don't have time to talk to people because I'm too busy doing the work. And I totally get that, and I totally respect that. And I think having the ability to see that balance and see the different things really helps you understand different players and understand where they're coming from, and not just typecast them as a certain type of individual, and you know, kind of work through those things. And, you know, you said there's 32 different sports that are represented on this call. I open up my Facebook sometimes and I see like that yellow basketball that you could dribble in front of the iPad. And you mentioned a golf swing analyzer before. I think in every sport that we look at, there is always going to be a push, and it's moving faster than ever for more data, more metrics, more information. But you also have to meet the kid where they're at, right? And the biggest thing for me, when I look at Blast, I can look at 72 different things, but I just look at the number of swings that they're taking, because we know, you know, sure as anything, the more shots you take, the better shooter you're going to become. The more you run, the faster you'll be. More swings you take, the better hitter you're going to be. So just being able to track volume, I think, is a super important thing that, you know, we really have found to be kind of a sticking point with us.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to understanding what your players are doing and how they're doing it. You know, I've loved what I've seen out of so many different coaches who are offering digital training right now, and they're offering skill development through Zoom meeting rooms, and they're doing different things. That stuff's awesome, you know, and if you have the ability and time to be able to teach through that model, do it. You know, your kids are going to grab it. They're going to love it. They're going to have fun with it. And I think more than anything, we need to make sure that the fun stays in this time right now, because it would be very easy for us to be all business, and, you know, but like, it is the fun that is going to keep your group together. And it is the fun that is going to continue with and grow brand loyalty, because after this, you know, all of our leaders, all of our organizations, they're going to come out on the other side of this. And what you did and the time that you put in, whether you're a high school coach, a middle school coach, and Nelson, I'd love for you to just give the quick little overview of your son's team, because I think this will be a great icing on the cake for tonight, and just kind of what you did with your son's team.
Yeah, so I have 3 children, but my youngest is just turned 5 years old, was supposed to start T-ball this year. And a few weeks back, we did a Zoom call with, I think, 8 or 9 of them hopped on, and it was 15 to 20 minutes. 3 minutes might have been me actually talking to them, and my challenge to them, try to learn all the positions, right? And I think that's the thing that we all have to look at, like, hey, you know, talking about advanced mechanics or, you know, metrics and all this detail, you have to meet each player where they're at. You have to meet each sport, you know, where they feel comfortable, and have fun with it, you know, and I think that's the fun part about it, and the challenge to all of us as coaches is just see the world through their eyes and make them better for tomorrow.
Yeah, and you know what, we're going to come out on the other side, as I mentioned, and leaders are going to be born through this adversity. Organizations are going to be born through this adversity. I mean, I think that's a really important thing for us to remember. I hope, you know, you guys got a couple takeaways from this tonight, you know, investing in control, and the fact that free is a great resource. I think that you guys can provide a really positive atmosphere right now with an inviting schedule for these athletes. And that information is key and is king to everything that we're doing. The more you can give families and athletes about what's next and what's coming, the better off you're going to be as an organization. And just to understand that we have a really unique opportunity to teach leadership, to teach friendship, to build something more than just an athlete right now. There's 2 chances to win tonight. I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the call, but I want you guys just to keep this in mind that all of you were entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card by joining us tonight. So you've all been entered. We will pick a coach on Monday morning, and that coach will be contacted. We'll try you on the phone. We'll try you via email. We'll give you 24 hours to get back to us, and if you don't, we'll pick another. And then the other opportunity tonight that Nelson and I wanted to make sure we afforded you guys was by creating a free team edition profile through enter.ncsa.team. You have the ability to win a free premium NCSA recruiting profile for one of your student athletes. Okay. We'll draw a winner. We'll talk to you guys about it. But by creating a team edition profile through that specific link, you have the chance to win a free premium recruiting profile. If you already have one, send me an email and let me know that you already have one, and you'll be entered to win that same drawing, okay? So if you already have an account, let us know. And, just send me an email, and I will add you to the raffle, okay? I'm here, every day. I love the opportunity to talk to coaches. My number is 312-638-4458. You can email me as well. I would love a chance to talk with all of you and help all of you guys get more information. If you have questions about this, if you have questions for Nelson, let us know. I can connect you guys. We want to make sure that you guys have a resource in us here. The more of these, any more topics that you guys have, throw them our way. Maybe we can host another one here coming up. But I really appreciate all your time, your energy, your effort. The fact that you are here means you care. And please throw questions at us. We want to be a useful part of your program. We will send all these slides out. We'll send the recording out to you guys. So keep an eye out for that. We'll get that to you guys here over the course of the next 24 hours. All right. Nelson, thank you so much for co-hosting with me. You are great. I'll stay on here and I'll keep this open for maybe a couple of minutes just in case anyone has any questions via chat. But feel free to call me or email me as well. We really appreciate you guys. I don't think we're getting anything new, Nelson, so.
All right, you're going through and answering those questions?
I'm trying, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, and I'm gonna go check on the kids now.
All right, man.
All right. Good night, everyone.